Good evening, everybody. So please find a place that suits you, and we will begin our evening festivities. Thank you all for coming. A few people have missed their flights and got rained out in one way or another, but we're delighted to have so many of you with us this evening. And we are really privileged to have with us tonight the Lieutenant Governor from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Winsome Earle-Sears, who I want to tell you something about her that you may not know. You know, she runs for Lieutenant Governor independently. She's not on the same ticket as the gubernatorial candidate, as is the case in some states. In Virginia, the lieutenant governor runs on one ticket or separately, independently from other office holders in the Commonwealth. So, you know, there's a question mark. Who's more popular? Is it the lieutenant governor or is it the governor? Now, we know that Glenn Youngkin pulled off a remarkable accomplishment in Virginia because he managed to be elected against somebody who had held that office previously. And that's not easily done because, you know, there's a lot of respect for even a quasi-incumbent. I mean, he wasn't the literal governor, but he had been governor. And so you got to give Governor Youngkin credit for the campaign he ran and specifically for his mobilization of the citizens of the Commonwealth behind the purposes and goals of education and our educational institutions, and the need to make sure that we educate our children even when there are some risks from viruses in the Commonwealth. But he only got 51% of the vote. He only got 51% of the vote, you know, so he did win. That's all you need. But he only got 51% of the vote. 54% of the vote. Now, she told me not to tell you this story. She says it's not a good thing for the lieutenant governor. So I don't want this. I don't want anybody else to know about this, but I thought you would realize that we have an especially attractive political leader in our midst, and we feel extremely privileged to have the Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earle-Sears. Now, I could tell you some things about her that are quite amazing. You may have read some of this yourselves during the course of the day, but she's a native of Kingston, Jamaica. So she had to cross the water to come to this country, just as Alexander Hamilton had to do. So I sort of put her in a similar category, you know, a person who emerged as a political leader in the United States after coming from the Caribbean. And she served in the United States Marine Corps. That's quite an accomplishment. And so she served in a variety of offices, as you would expect. And she She was elected to the House of Delegates in Virginia. So she's had the proper introduction to politics that you need to be a strong leader. And she is a person of conviction and dedication, and the person that we are delighted to have with us tonight. So please, Ms. Winsome Earle-Sears.
Well, hello, everybody. Oh, that was so weak. I'm going to try it again, class. Hello, everybody. Actually, you should say it like Seinfeld says it. Hello. Some of you are not that young, I guess, or old. So I can tell that the governor has not been here because, you know, he's like 6'5", and then he likes to wear cowboy boots. So normally the thing is all the way up here and I have to bring it down. But yes, that was a joke. Thank you. Before I get any further, I want to introduce my chief of staff, Julianne Condry, former vice president of lobbying organization, my right hand, my left foot, everything. People think that, yes, thank you. They think that we have this massive public relations committee doing all my social media, etc. And you're looking at her. So my daughter said to me one time when everything was still baking and, you know, we're on the campaign trail with governor, well, the candidate. And she says, so how's it like being with Glenn? And I said, short. So I think I'm all out of jokes now. Might as well get to the meat of the thing. Since we are here and we're all talking about education, I've got a pop quiz. So tell me, what does LeBron James and Pharrell, the singer, have in common? The gentleman in the blue. They both started schools. So you think something might be going wrong? I mean, if everything is going right, why would you start something else? I mean, there can't be two Amazons. Don't tell Walmart I said that. We're trying to get them to bring their headquarters. Although, you know, I was just with, we were just with the gentleman himself, Jeff Bezos, because, you know, they moved Amazon's, one of the headquarters to Virginia. And yes, and so I said to him, I don't know if I should thank you for coming to Virginia or not. And his face started, wait a minute, you know, you want to be nice to me, right? And then I said to him, because actually, I think we should thank Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes, and he laughed. And I said, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to buy a billboard that faces DC that says, thank you, Congresswoman. And it was kind of funny. So, yeah, we've got all those high paying jobs. What? We look good. So I'll just tell you very quickly my story and how I came to do all this. And really, education is very important to me, which is very strange because I never wanted to have anything to do with education. Not a thing. When I was done with school, I was done with school, and I'm not going to be a teacher, not going to be any of that. Except that when you see a need and you think you might have some kind of way you think you can fix things, then you get involved. As someone once said, actually as a pastor, 1920 something, said, you can either light a candle or you can curse the darkness. And to light a candle is to find the solution. To curse the darkness is to be a victim, and I'm not a victim. My dad came to America with $1.75 in his pocket. And actually, I'm spotting him a quarter. He can't remember if it was $1.50 or $1.75. Like that would have made a difference, you know. And the curious thing is, he came just 17 days before Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. And so I said to him, why would you come then? Things are really bad for us. And he said, because this is where the jobs were. I said, yeah, but you came at the height of the civil rights movement. And he said, this is where the opportunities were. Now, the interesting thing is, he could have actually gone to England, because at the time, Jamaica was just coming out of independence. So he had a British passport. He was a British citizen. I think, well, I'm not in the South anymore, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think y'all had a problem with taxation and representation. And so you left the British Tea Party, Indians, something like that. You're a rough crowd. So anyway, we kept all of our colonialisms, and indeed, we still drink tea. We send the children to bed with tea and crackers. Yes, we still do that. In fact, if you go to Jamaica right now, actually, they're thinking of revolting too, and going to have a referendum on whether or not they should leave the Commonwealth as the king now, head of state. But if you go now, you will see Black people in white wigs sitting on the Supreme Court. It's kind of funny to me. But if you can't laugh, I mean, life is too hard. So when my dad came, he could have gone to England, but he chose America. And yes, there are some people who wish he had chosen, England, because I'd have gone with him. But he chose America. And the thing about that is, Jamaicans have been coming to America even when it was really, 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 really bad. Colin Powell's parents came from Jamaica. They came in 1910 or something like that. Susan Rice, her grandparents came from Jamaica. Belafonte, his mom came from Jamaica. So it's like, what's going on here? But no, America has been drawing ever since after the Civil War. We were said, we don't know, we're going to take our chances in America. Because you know what we don't see? Nobody's breaking into China. Not one person is trying to break over the border and get into China. No, they're trying to get out. And Russia too. I don't know if you saw recently, because I get my news from the New York Post. And it's showing that all these Russians are buying one-way tickets so much that it's like $1,000+ now for a one-way ticket out. And I say all that to say, this is what, since we're talking about education, this is what Martin Luther King Jr. said. And he gave this speech. You might have heard about it, Life's Blueprint. And it's very instructive. 6 months before he was assassinated, he gave this speech to a group of students, it says, at Barat Junior High School in Philadelphia, October 26, 1967. And he says to the children there, I want to suggest some of the things that should begin your life's blueprint. Number one in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, your own somebodyness. And he goes on, I'm skipping through, and he says, secondly, you must have as the basic principle the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. I say to you, my young friends, doors are opening to you. Doors of opportunities that were never open to your mothers and fathers. And the great challenge facing you is to be ready to face these doors when they open. This hasn't always been true, but it will become increasingly true. And so I urge you to study hard, to burn the midnight oil. I would say to you, don't drop out of school. I understand all the sociological reasons, but I urge you that in spite of your economic plight, to stay in school. He could have given that speech today. Isn't that amazing? Doors are opening to you that were never open to your mothers and fathers. Well, look who walked through those doors. And I did it because of the people who came before me, who paved the way, who braved so much. And I think about all that and I say, here I am second in command, having to win my own election, because you just heard the gubernatorial candidate doesn't pick his running mate, the gubernatorial again. So I had to win my election on my own, and I'm second in command in the former capital of the Confederacy. Don't tell me the doors haven't opened. And it was education. Because when my father came with $1.75, he took any job he could find and he put himself through school with that money. And then he started his American dream. Now he's comfortably retired. In fact, the house that he's in is the second one he's built since retirement. I tell him, it's too big for you. And he says to me, leave me alone, it's my money. Mr. $1.75. Education will lift us all. Education will lift us all. Frederick Douglass said that when he was 8 years old, his master took him from Virginia to Baltimore, and the wife of his master didn't know that she shouldn't teach him how to read and write. And then one day he came in, the slave owner came in and saw what the wife was doing, and he stopped her. And this is what he said: you cannot teach a slave to read and write, because if you do, he will be of no further use to us. And Frederick Douglass said, from that day forward, I understood that my ticket to freedom was education. How then did we get here where we are saying as Black people that we're acting white when we speak proper English? When the slaves knew, when the slave master knew. In fact, it is said that if a slave was caught learning how to read, they would cut his or her finger off as a reminder. Why? Because they could write their own ticket literally to freedom. This man, this woman has the right to travel freely. And bam, you write your way to Canada. So we're going to do something about that. And if I'm the one to do it, then I'm the one to do it. 20 years ago, when I was first elected, I got a bill through, and it was to help charter schools be, more available, because it was so limited in Virginia. And so 20 years ago, after we fought and fought, I finally, and this was really geared towards HBCUs. That's how I sold it. That's how I got it through. And we got the bill to say, which is now the law, that any institution of higher education could themselves start a charter school. And then we also got it to say that any charters, not just granted, but denied, would be reported. Because before that, we didn't know how many actually made application and were denied, because they were denying them left and right. We didn't know anything about it. And then we wanted that the charter schools would also be immune from liability in the same way that the regular public schools were, because, you know, when you don't want a thing, you can put a lot of roadblocks in the way. And that's what kept happening. So we got that through and it went nowhere. You got a law, and if the people don't want it, they can make sure. And so 20 years later, I'm back. So, you know, Moses came back after 40 years and I came back after 20. So just call me Little Mo. Anyhow, and we only have, how many charters? Is it 6 or 8? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And our children are failing, and they're failing spectacularly. In fact, Governor Youngkin had almost immediately, as soon as he took office, had his secretariat, the education component there, do a quick study to find out where are our kids really. And, you know, we have the SOLs, which is our state standards of learning, and they've been lying to us. So the standards of learning are telling us that when the children are in the 4th grade, that 70% of them are passing. And we found out, no, according to the NAEP scores, 84% of Black children cannot do math by the time they're in the 4th grade. That's a huge gap. And here's the problem with that. 5 governors ago, I guess it was, a Republican governor came into office, and he said, Governor Allen, he said, we're going to have to do something about education, because in order for children to graduate from high school back in the late 90s, all you had to do was pass a 6th grade literacy passport test. 6th grade. Did away with that, put in a blue ribbon commission, and came up with the SOLs. And it was so good that the federal government adopted it, called it No Child Left Behind. And so it was good for the time, because what we were going to now know is that whatever the rich kids were learning, then the poor kids had to learn too. We finally had a standard that everybody had to learn this and learn it by a certain time. So it was good until it didn't work anymore. You know, I have done prison ministry for men 2 years. Loved it. Every Wednesday, 6 o'clock, there I was, showing up to try to bring hope to the men. And so many of them, I don't have to tell you this, they're there because they don't have an education. Is it any wonder that the education rate of the men and women incarcerated mirrors the education rate of those who are failing by the time they're in the 4th grade? Because you see, they almost never catch up. So the issue is not, unfortunately, but we're couching it in terms of politics, and we can't afford to do that, because you all know, you're experts about the PISA test. And you know that China's beating us, and yet we're the #1 superpower. How can we remain the #1 superpower if our children aren't learning? So that's why whenever you hear me talk about it, to me, it's a national security issue. National security crisis. Because you know what? The Chinas of the world, the Russias of the world, I mean, North Korea, Iran, all those places, they don't care about what we're doing here. You know, they're finding that, you know, we're at each other's throats. Black against white, against Latinos, against, you know, and we're destroying ourselves. You know, Rome was destroyed from within. And they're watching us. And in the meantime, they're going on with, you know, they're carrying on. And we can't afford to do that. So to me, the new redlining is education. I mean, the past, it continues to be prologue. It's just changes a little bit. You have where the only school that you can attend is this school and this school only. And you only get out if you can afford it. That's the new red line. I say that the new Brown versus Board of Ed fight is school choice. And it really, think about it. It's always been parental choice, because ultimately, what did the parent want? She wanted to be able to send her child to the best school possible. And you know what was fabulous about that? Once it was correctly decided, it wasn't just for Black kids. Latino kids benefited. Asian kids benefited. All kids benefited from that. And that's why when I saw what was happening with the Asian students and the quotas against them, ostensibly to help people who look like me, I said, no, we can't have that. You know, the one thing we learn from history is we don't learn from history. And I didn't come up with that one. It's like we're determined to repeat the sins of the past. And so the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, and I, we signed an amicus brief to support the efforts of the Asian students to have access to the best education possible. And the NAACP has come against me, but that's nothing new. But you know, I am going to be proved just fine because I'm on the side of right. History will be kind to me, I think. And if not, I'll be dead, so it won't matter. So we say all that to say that 20 years ago, and I'm closing, as my pastor would say. Usually it's his fifth close, and I'm closing. Anyway, 20 years ago, when I was in the House of Delegates, and by the way, since we're in this historical place, the House of Delegates is the longest continuously serving legislative body in the entire New World. And I got to serve in that body. I'm telling you, the doors are opening. 20 years ago, I was there. And as I was going through my district, I went down to one of my schools that's in the public housing projects. And I was in the second grade, and I was telling them, now let's make a law, after I explained to them how laws are made. And I'm thinking the kid is going to get up and say, well, let's have free pizza for everybody. And that's not what he said. He said, I want to make a law that if you kill somebody, you have to pay for their funeral. He was in the second grade in the inner city. And I looked at the teacher, and she, now, what kind of life is this child living? So that was 20 years ago. So he's probably now 27 years old. I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if he got a good education. I don't know if he's alive. The only problem with that is my chief of staff and I, March or April, went to an inner city school again. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I just wanted to go and talk with the kids and find out what's going on. Middle school, Martin Luther King Jr. And I looked at the kids and I thought, we got to pump them up. So I was giving them, the rah, 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 do your best. You can do. And they were just empty-eyed, 99% Black. And it wasn't working. And finally, I just said, what makes you want to come to school? What makes you get up in the mornings? And one little boy, he said, I'm just glad that I get to live to see another day. And I'm thinking, that's what you say when you're 85 years old, That's what you say if you're living in a war zone. You're in middle school. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. So you see, we're playing politics with these kids' lives. That's why this is a national security crisis. We've got to do something. We've got to do it better. We also visited private schools. And in the private schools, they have scholarship so that some of the inner city kids can come for free. And I went through, and every classroom had a lamp, curtains at the windows, a couch, a rug, and a little library right there in the classroom. It looked like home. When I went to the public schools, do you know where I saw the lamp, the rug, the couch? You've been there. The same school. You see what I mean? And I said to the principal, oh, this is so beautiful. It's like a little oasis. And she said, yes, I need that. I'm telling you, we've got this, as we would say in the Marine Corps, bass awkward. It's a good thing I didn't say that. I had to think about that. So we're going to change things because we have to, because we can't lose another generation. We must. Our children, there are numbers that are behind these statistics. Yeah, no, there are people that are behind these statistics. And frankly, I need them to have a good education so that my Social Security continues. Or at least we want to make sure the Chinas of the world understand that we're here. If you look at these nuclear subs, you notice that the average age on of the service members about 25, 26. Nuclear subs, all that power. You got some kid at the wheel, looking at the dollars, ready to do. Will that continue? Only if we make different choices and stop politicizing education. So thank you. Thank you for having me. My father, as I finish up here, my fifth close. My father brought me to America when I was 6, and we lived in the Bronx, and I was in the 3rd grade by then. And he said, you're not learning anything. He sent me back to Jamaica for school, a third world country. And when I got back, they said I was a dunce and put me back in the 1st grade. I was the tallest kid. But I had an uncle who graduated from Harvard, because Harvard and Yale and all these other schools, they come to Jamaica and recruit. You think it might be our education system? Yes. And so in the 60s, he came and he tutored me, and until finally I got ahead by one grade. I was back 2 grades and then I got ahead a grade. So thank you, Harvard, for that. And everything I said on Facebook about you, I didn't mean any of it. Yes. So we're gonna do better. But sent me back. And here we are 50 plus years later, and things are still the same. So we even got to the point where we were going to teach Ebonics in Virginia, teach Ebonics to the children, because we said that we were breaking whites. I'm telling you, it's crazy. So thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And now I get to hear your questions. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for being the leader that you are and having for
Thank you.
It's a good place to do business. The corporation commission is effective as well. Private schools are allowed to be their own accreditors. The problem with charter schools is counties and the school districts just not get past it. And also in Virginia, counties and municipalities have control over zoning and issues like that. And it would be naturally a little concerned that micro schools got a problem with that. I wonder if it might make sense for Virginia to go in a system where just the private schools can just approve and accredit other private schools. That maybe micro schools, maybe even something for charter schools, just to make it easier to open up something that's effective and serve kids the way their parents want.
Well, thank God you didn't ask me the Miss Universe question about world peace. We currently, because of the political realities, we have the House as Republicans, but we don't have a majority in the Senate. And so the governor was trying to push through different rules on charter schools, but we couldn't get it through. It didn't even get out of committee. And then I think he tried to put it on the floor and it didn't go anywhere. So what he tried to do this time was to just run with lab schools. And what we discovered was that we had 2 female senators, Democrats, who had benefit of lab schools. And so we figured, oh, they can't vote against lab schools because they know the beauty of lab schools, except they voted against it. But that's okay. Next year's an election year, we'll use that. So we have to wait until we have a majority. And actually, the only reason we were able to get the lab schools through was because, you know, as the president of the Senate, I preside. And so I'm looking down at the board to make sure that after I put the question, to make sure that everybody has gone through and voted, because I swear to you, invariably, I closed the roll and somebody didn't vote because they were playing something on their computer. And then I have to bring the vote back, undo, and do this other nonsense. So I'm looking down at the score and I'm waiting for him to vote and I don't see it. I look up and he's not there. And I look at his seatmate to say, hit the button, because we already know how he's going to vote. It's going to be a no. And he said, and I thought, I know how this works. So I shut the vote real quick before anybody could say anything. And it was a tie vote. He had taken a walk. But that was good. And then tie vote means I get to vote. And I voted yes. Bang the gavel and we got lab schools through. So until we can get some people to change, or until we get a different body in elections, nothing will change. You're going to wish you asked questions. Yes, sir.
You said earlier today, you asked why people don't support this concept. I would be very interested in your answer to that question.
Well, being in politics means that you really are a jack of all trades and master of none. You can be an expert in some particular field, but I like to hear what other people have to say about it because you're in it all the time. I'm in this little pot, that pot, that pot. But that's why, people say you hate lobbyists, but lobbyists are the experts. And when they come to me and they want a vote a certain way, I always want to know, well, what does the opposition say? And lobbyists know they better tell you, because then you'll never trust them again. So we always hear both sides. And I know that a lot of it is fear. Who likes change? And I said some of that today. And then there's job protection. And then if we have change, then the only reason why we're changing is because it hasn't been working. And if it's not working, that means I was part of the problem. And I don't want to admit that I'm part of the problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to think about all those things and you try to placate everybody. And after a while, you just got to say, you know what? This is about the child. This is about the child. You already have your education and this child doesn't get do-overs. So we're just going to do the right thing and vote. And if you vote me out of office, well, my life continues. It does,
You were gracious enough to spend your entire day with us. What was the most interesting thing you took away from today?
There was lots, but I think, and maybe it's because after all, when I'm in the rostrum of the Senate and I call on the gentleman from so-and-so and the gentlelady from so-and-so, and for what purpose, and will you yield for a question? The gentleman yields, senator has the floor. After all is said and done, there comes the question and it's time to vote. And so the question that I heard formulated is, and I think this is so important, do we really think that education as we know it will not change in 10 years' time? Because if it is going to change, and we know it will, I mean, we're knocking down all kinds of barriers, then are we ready for when those doors open? And if not, who are we going to blame? Because I can tell you that when we, and I hate to put it in political terms, but it's how it all shook out. Republicans wanted to reopen the schools in Virginia, and the Democrats didn't. They said that we were racist and we hated Black people and we were trying to kill the Black kids. It was crazy. I mean, these things were said out loud. Except now, suddenly I'm hearing, actually, no, it was the Republicans who didn't want to open the schools. I mean, this is crazy. So you just keep going and you take everything with a grain of salt. But it's that question. Do we really think that education won't change in 10 years?
Speaking about the parents' election, do you have a sense that if parents are still engaged as much as they were, or now that things are getting back to normal, have they kind of just gotten back in their regular lives and checking out again?
Oh, no, the parents are not letting go. Because as I was saying to one of the groups today, you can be affiliated with whatever party you want, and you can party, political party, But when you get to my child, all bets are off, because this is my child and my child's future. And that's why we couldn't have won in Virginia had Democrats not come over and had independent leaning Democrats not come over. Because one thing COVID showed, if there was anything good, it's that the kids weren't learning. including the kids in the suburbs. Not what you thought they were. And the private schools were open 5 days a week for a whole year, and the public schools were still shut. And not only that, but you had parents who had one child in private school and one child in public school. And well, she's going to school. She's staying home. The public school child is staying home. And yeah, so and I had so many, one school district in particular, in public school, the kids never signed on online, not one time for a whole year. 40% of them, not one time. And you know what the school board decided to do? Pass everybody to the next grade. So they were actually 2 years behind. And I went, one of the schools I went to, the teacher said to me, the kids normally come to school, come to my year, 2 years behind. Now they're 4 years behind. What am I supposed to do? So we need school choice, and the parents need to be able to make that decision and have it now. So if you want to close the schools, fine. I'll just send them to the private school, because as the private school headmaster said to me when I asked him, doesn't COVID come to your school? He said, yes. But when the child came down with COVID, we sent them home, clean everything up, and kept going, because we don't get paid to be shut down. We're a business. If we shut down for good. So parents are more emboldened now, and they're not letting go.
Yeah, thank you for your remarks, Lieutenant Governor. And we're showcasing new material. A lot of times as a politician, you don't want to get sort of ahead of your constituency. The polling we have says that, like, kind of your point, that families are significantly farther ahead of what most political leaders believe they should be acting on right now. What would you say that this group would be helpful in helping to close that gap?
Well, you know, there is the silent majority. And there are some politicians who, you know, we're taking a risk by coming out, because as my pastor used to say sometimes, you think you're a leader, but if nobody's following you, then you're just taking a walk. And so, you know, we need people to help come alongside, you know, to say, yes, you're not out there alone. You're fighting the right battle. We're there with you, because you can't afford to remain silent. And so you got to call your legislators in your various states, call your legislators and say to them, this is what we want. You got to email them. You got to go to their offices. You got to bring other people with you. They have to know what you want, because otherwise nothing will change. Because I tell you one thing, you talk about education. They say that legislators can't read, but you know what we can do? We can count. And we know how to count votes. We know what the majority looks like. So you can't stay silent. It doesn't work. Always let your voices be heard. That's how you can help move the needle forward. That's why you saw the gubernatorial candidate in Pennsylvania, who is a Democrat. Did you see that? He's for school choice. He can count votes. He sees the same poll you see, that this is not a Democrat Republican issue. This is a my child issue. And my child needs a good education, because we got to get the kid out of the house and on their own. Thank you.